What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cheesy Beats, and today we're going to be comparing the original Mazda MX-5 NA Miata to the newer NC Miatas. It's often said that when you're comparing the original MX-5 NA Miata to the second and third gen cars, that the newer cars are the better cars, but the original Miata is going to be the better Miata. That's all cool. If you believe it, you can buy one. But all that aside, putting the NB in the background just a bit, how does the MX-5 NC Miata compare to the original Miata? Before we keep going, let's look at how the generations are designated. If you have, you have the first gen, which is the NA. The second, the NB. The third is the NC, and the fourth is the ND. We're going to be comparing the original NA Miata, which ran from 1990 through 1997, to the original NC Miata, which runs from 2006 to 2013 and on. Now, the NA and the NB are very similar cars that mostly share the same chassis and engine with a body change and like other small updates. But the NC is a completely different car. The NC Miata runs on a shortened, modified version of the RX-8 chassis and has a different engine with a slightly larger displacement at 2 liters. Now, there are those who love the original NA and hate the NC, and there are those that love the newer NC and just dislike the NA for being too small and too dainty, and there are those who love them all. Now, the NC definitely has more modern looks as well as interior. The NA is pretty much a classic by now. It's the only Miata you can get with pop-up headlights, and everyone knows that pop-up headlights are a definite win, even if they're parachutes when you're trying to drive fast at night. Now, firstly, let's look at price. Is price an option for you? Does it matter? Are you going to care about how much you're spending on it, or are you just kind of fucking balling like that? A really clean, stock NA MX-5 Miata you can probably find for anywhere between maybe the $6,000 to $8,000 range. Yes, there are cheaper ones, and there are more expensive ones, but from what I've seen on Marketplace, that's kind of what you're looking at. While a new NC MX-5 can be found for around $25,000 to $27,000. After, some negotiations, used ones can be found for probably anywhere close to the $15,000 range. If you pay $8,000 for an NA, you're paying for the vintage vibe of the car. Nice thing, however, if you keep it nice, it's going to hold its value very well as the clean ones become more and more scarce because of teenager ricing out the fucking shit boxes. And if you think Miatas are cool, there's really nothing else out there that offers, the same excitement, the reliability, and the looks for the price. I've had a bit of a hard time trying to find something that I would definitely want to drive that's under $10,000. Now, of course, I love Miatas, and if you're watching this, you probably do too. But there are people, who don't like them and would definitely not feel the same way about a sub $10,000 car. Now, this makes the NA a much more affordable car than the NC, but unless you have cash in hand, it also makes it harder to buy, being a car that's more than 10 years old, and if you only have $2,000 in your pocket, you can't very easily get a loan for a $5,000 Miata. Street value on these cars is considerably higher than fair market value and Kelley Blue Book value. So if there ever was a chance to get a car loan on a car that's more than 10 years old, your dream is going to be shattered when the bank tells you that they're not going to lend you the money because the car that you want is $5,000 and collateral is only $2,000. On the other hand, you could easily take that same $2,000 that's in your pocket and put it down towards an '06 Miata priced at like $15,000 and easily get a loan for the remaining $13,000. Or you could just go all out and buy a new one if you're bad and bougie like that. The fact that it's easier doesn't mean it's the best thing to do, though. You get a newer, more technologically advanced car, warranty, all the bells and whistles, but you have to pay a lot more for it. A typical case of diminishing returns as you go up the scale. Whether you can afford it or not is besides the point. With these kinds of cars, you don't necessarily buy the most expensive one you can afford. You need to find out what your reason is for buying a Miata. Do you want an original NA simply for the looks and lightweight feel? Whether or not you can afford a new NC or Porsche or whatever the hell, doesn't matter. Point is, just because it's inexpensive doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. In fact, with an NA Miata, you get so much that the price is a bit of a joke. Really, in the end, it's what you want first. Then you go look at the numbers. Performance. Let's look at this here. The 1990 to 1997 Miata is not about power or top speed. It's about the nimbleness and the fun feel of the car. The NC does feel much more powerful, while a 94 Miata, in a 94 Miata, every horsepower has to deal with roughly about 18 pounds of car. In an 09 MX5, each horsepower has to push only 15 pounds of car. That's quite a bit of improvement in power to weight ratio. Plus, the MZR 2.0 engine in the NC is a lot more eager and more torquey, and it revs faster. Top it all off, sounds fucking awesome compared to the BP inline 4 1.8 liter and the B6ZE inline 4 1.6 in the NA Miatas. The newer car definitely pulls a lot better, and while most car enthusiasts agree that every Miata is vastly underpowered, the NC can be argued not to really feel that weak, where, unfortunately, compared to the NC, the NA does feel quite lethargic. The 6-speed transmission in the NC feels considerably notchier than the NA's 5-speed transmission. It's also much more annoying at cold temperatures, the clunking and the crunching around until, your fluid actually warms up, while the NA's 5-speed has a more mechanical and stiffer feel. Here's one way to put this. The NC transmission is notchier, but smoother overall, especially at higher revs where the NA trans, while not as notchy, feels a lot more metallic and stiffer, but precise. The throws are also a lot longer in the NA, which is why a short throw shifter would be added to definitely help bring that down a bit. And the stock shift knob on the NA doesn't help. The stock Miata shift knob weighs about 195 grams and has a little bit of an uncomfortable shape to it. The NC Miata shift knob weighs an extra 25 grams, but is slightly taller and is a lot more comfortably shaped. Now, both transmissions are adequate for the cars and are very reliable, and so are the clutches. Although, the traditional clutch in the NA does feel much better than the NC's clutch. The 6-speed in the 2006 Plus MX5 is apparently race-driven and more robust. Word has it that Mazda made improvements to the shifter fork in model years later than 2006 due to some failures they discovered in the MX5 Cup cars when the NC Miata first came out. The transmission in the NC is pretty noisy, especially at low revs. When pulling out from a full stop or when changing gears at low revs, you can hear the gear mesh noise that resembles a rattle or the faint rumbling of a diesel. And this can be quite annoying. On the other hand, the newer car is quieter in every other respect. So if you want an NC Miata, buy a loud exhaust like every other car guy out there. Or, the NA Miata's 5-speed is dead quiet. But for freeway driving, it probably could use a 6-gear as a top. Some people have complained that the 2006 Plus 6-speed Miatas rev too high and are too loud on the freeway, but they've clearly never driven an original NA on the freeway. It screams loud as hell around 4,000 RPMs, and when it, those high speeds, that an extra gear would definitely help and smoothen that out a bit. But then again, they're not really meant for freeways and optimal for driving on the highways. But don't forget that you can also get a 5-speed in the NC for those of you that have to opt for the base model. Now here's where it gets weird. With handling, the original Miata rides stiffer and more sporty than the newer NC MX5 suspension, fueled by a dash of Buick and another of Lincoln Town Car. The NA suspension is what you'd expect from a little sports car with a good suspension geometry but inexpensive components. Sporting, fun, and acceptable. The NC suspension follows the same principle but for some reason is a lot softer. So normal city and freeway driving is relatively comfortable, and it's pretty good in the NC. And as we'd all expect, the NC absorbs shocks a lot better than the NA. Soft, but, it's not a train wreck. In sports car terms, Mazda wasn't completely blind when they did this. They were just not thinking like a tuner. They were thinking like a traditional car. The funny thing is, the car sticks well and handles, but it doesn't do it like other sports cars that turn in with the suspension near neutral. The NC Miata is designed by Mazda to set itself on the bump stops of the shocks as it's turning. In real world terms, this works, but it's not as fun as a flatter car. But nonetheless, the suspension is something that, is the NC Miata's essential modification. In any of these cars, whether it be the NA, the NB, or the NC, it's safe to say, also the ND, suspension can always be improved. When it comes to handling, there are usually huge gains with a good suspension setup. It's not only true for the Miatas, also true for things like the Evo, the STI, 350Z, 370Z, and a bunch more others that are in the below $50,000 price range. So if you're serious about handling, definitely consider aftermarket suspension no matter what Miata you're getting, because it's definitely going to feel a lot better in terms of, handling and steering wise. Now steering, let's move on to that. Steering and handling definitely go hand in hand. In the Miata, the steering feel is very important. So we're comparing the NA to the NC, all on their own, apart from handling. Both cars use traditional hydraulic steering systems. For the NC, that's a good thing in a time when most companies, were going electric. Perfect example was the BRZ, the FRS, and the Toyota GT86. Car that would be perfect with a traditional hydraulic system. Now, obviously, for all of the NA and the original Miata lovers, the steering feel and precision in the NC Miata is definitely way better than in the NA, which is safe to say considering, upgraded parts, different things like that based on the time period that they were made in. The steering in the NC is definitely more direct and slightly heavier and has a more road feel and provides a better sense of direction than the one in the original NA Miata. Not to mention the size of the steering wheel feels a lot better in relation, to the one in, feels a lot better in relation to the car in the NC than the ginormous ass steering wheel in the original Miatas. Albeit, both cars' steering response is great, but the NC definitely has a lot better response to it. Moving on to chassis and the dynamics. Excluding the sensation of power when exiting corners, the NA definitely feels a bit more nimble. The NC is fun because you can easily power out of corners, which with much better, you can definitely power out of corners a lot better. The feeling of acceleration and slingshotting out of the corner, makes it more fun than just simply carrying speed into it and hoping to carry that speed out with minimal acceleration capabilities while, exiting after the apex. Keep in mind, this is going to be stock for stock. Putting a solid turbo in your NA would definitely change the story a lot. But this is, again, stock against stock. The NA chassis is a wet noodle compared to the NC. I know. But the 2006-2013 MX-5 is not the stiffest car out there, but it's definitely a lot stiffer than the NA. In the NA, you can feel and hear everything. Flex, creaking, everything. The NC takes a little bit more to twist out of shape, not to mention it's a lot quieter and more comfortable car overall, especially for longer trips. On the other hand, I don't really vouch for some of the comments from some of the NA owners that wish to own an NC and claim that the NA feels like a tin can in comparison with the newer car. While it's noisier, less composed, and less luxurious than the NC is, it's still a good car just to drive around. It's not really just a tin can, it's just a lot more raw in comparison to the NC. Now, of course, both cars can definitely be improved and stiffened, but the NA's biggest stiffening benefit comes from having a good roll bar. Yes, it's going to add a lot more weight to the car and a lot less to your wallet, But if you didn't buy an NC, then you already have a fatter wallet because, price difference is a big thing. Now, granted, there are definitely other various bits and pieces to keep in mind when comparing an original Miata to an NC. Let's just put them in a point-by-point list for now, because you're probably tired of me just fucking rambling on. So here are 7 pros of the NC that definitely outweigh the original NA. The armrests in the NC are definitely more comfortable and better located than most of the NAs. The brakes work a lot better. It's a newer car that's going to be more reliable and need less preventative maintenance. The power, the retractable hardtop is very convenient if you like that sort of thing. The power windows roll down in less than 10 fucking minutes. The doors close with a nice little thunk compared to the NA's just fucking clank. And it's much easier and more comfortable to heel toe shift than in an NA based on the way the pedals are set up. Now, here are 7 pros to the NA that outweigh the NC. They're easier and definitely less expensive to buy and to mod if you're looking to mod them. Even if it breaks down, the overall cost of ownership is definitely less than the NC. There are a tons more aftermarket parts available for the NA than there are for the NC. There are more carb-approved parts for the NA, like, force induction things. The vintage feel and look to the car is just way cooler, obviously in comparison to the newer NC. They are a lot lighter weight than the NC is, as we discussed earlier. Then obviously, like I said earlier, pop-up headlights, which, everyone fucking loves them. Now, in the end, unless you're just, an NA Miata fan, it's not really worth spending, as much money boosting one to make it as fast and as capable as the NC, because by the time you're done, you're going to have put as much money into it as the price tag on a good used NC. Yet it's still not going to be as capable unless you really swap everything over. It's almost better to buy an NC if what you want is a fast NA. But overall, there really is no wrong answer. Both cars are great and each offers its own little bit of personality, style, and performance in their own various ways. Price can definitely have a lot to do with the final decision, and that all depends on, how the market may fluctuate based on what's going on, especially when considering an NA Miata. There are a lot of them out there because a lot were made, but not many in great condition, because the NC is definitely a lot more refined vehicle and a lot more capable. But it definitely lacks that cool vintage factor to it, like the NA. Nice thing is, though, that both cars do more or less the same thing, regardless of which one you get. They're both 2-seater convertibles that the outcome would generally be the same for that reason. So check your budget, pick your car, and just go. If you choose the car in question and correctly, you don't overpay, it's generally going to result in a good positive outcome depending on what you want in terms of style, performance, and personality and the feel of the cars. But obviously, pop-up headlights might just get you in the end, because the original NA Miatas with the pop-up headlights are just fucking phenomenal. And that's usually what gets people, because you see a Miata with pop-up headlights and a little smile, oh my god, it's a Miata. You see the newer ones and it's like, well, that's not really appealing to me because there's no pop-ups. And it just doesn't look or feel like a Miata in that regard. But if you guys have any comments or questions on the Miatas, let me know. Let me know if you're more inclined to the older or the newer Miatas, because I know some people really like the newer ones and some people really hate the newer ones. I myself would definitely opt for the older NA Miata with the pop-ups, because I want pop-ups and I love pop-ups because they're cool. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Be sure to let me know what I should do, what cars I should do next, what I should compare next, and what I should look into. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and you guys have a great day.